Hello, I'm Amy with the Ashland Family YMCA, here to give you about 15 minutes of your introductory spin session. Going to walk you through all the things you would find in a spin class. First of all, your warm-up phase. On the bike with a little bit of resistance. Bikes have RPMs on them. You'll be starting off between 80 and 90, just to get your seated legs warmed up. Now let's talk form. This is the most important part. One, we don't want you to hurt yourselves, and it really enhances your performance with proper form. So let's start with the feet. A nice circle stroke, making sure you don't start tipping your toes down during the entire cycle. Keeping those heels nice and flat as you pull them back. Knees nice and straight forward. Basically, all the action is happening from your feet up to your waist. Your upper body is pretty much along for the ride, but we still want to get the form right. We have a little hinge at the hips, nice flat back, shoulders down, chest open. It's very easy to start kind of caving your shoulders in, collapsing your chest. Instead, nice wide chest, shoulders down, and the arms, they're pretty much here for balance. Light hands. If you are a road cyclist, you have to use your hands so much. Save them. We don't need to brake. We don't need to steer. We don't need to change gears. So very relaxed hands, loose fingers, elbows with a slight bend in them. Very relaxed and elbows nice and in. Sometimes it seems easy to kind of let the elbows splay out a little bit. That kind of starts tweaking your shoulder. Keeping the elbows in, nice straight neck. Thinking about almost keeping an apple between your chin and your chest. Just warming up the legs, getting them ready for what's coming next. So at this point, once you've completed just a light warm-up, we'll be going into a more intense warm-up, adding some resistance onto the bikes, slowing the pedals down, generally dropping the RPMs below 80, somewhere in the 70s. Feeling the difference, really engaging those leg muscles at this point. Warming it up a little bit more. Remembering to breathe, that is crucial. I always like to say you have 3 friends in the spin room. Form, breathing, water. It is very important to stay well hydrated during spin. And with your breathing, think about complete breaths. Big inhales, big exhales. Now in a spin class, instructors will ask you to add or reduce resistance, increase or decrease speed, and also change your position on the bike. So, generally after about 7 to 10 minutes, really getting those legs warmed up in the seating position, you'll start to add resistance a little bit more onto the bikes so that you're nice and safe when you stand up. You have something to push against when you start to stand on a bike. At that point, remembering this is not a pulling motion, not going to use the handlebars to pull yourselves up. This is just a balance point. So, let's get ready for a standing climb. 3, 2, 1, up. Now at this point, we have a couple things on our side. We have gravity, and we have our own body weight. Now, if you stand and you realize, ooh, I added too much resistance on the bikes, you can do one of two things. If you're not comfortable standing, you can sit it back down. Also, you can reduce the resistance. But make sure when you're standing, you do have enough resistance so that the pedals don't get away from you. This is a very controlled motion. Everything on the spin bike is done with intention. And our intention is to elevate our heart rate. It is a great cardiovascular workout. You can tell my heart rate is increasing just by listening to my voice. Now at this point, doing a talk test, I can get out complete sentences. If you get to the point where you can only say 1 or 2 words at a time, you want to back off of the resistance. Now when you're standing, and here we go again, there are a number of different positions you can be in. Hands at position 3, still very light hands. Weight nice and back. And this is when we're climbing, simulating going up that steep hill. You can also have your hands at hands position 2, a little more upright, feeling pretty good, a very good place to do a standing run. Also, you can have your hands at position 1, almost upright, and just focus on going through the pedal strokes, always thinking about the circles. So hands back at position 3, and again, with the weight back, you really start to engage your glutes. Now we're going to go back in the saddle, and at this point, have a recovery, backing the resistance off, going back to 80 to 90, letting that heart rate lower. Most spin classes follow a HIIT format, high intensity interval training. Really focusing on the heart rate, bringing it up high, bringing it back down again. Bringing it up high, bringing it back down again. Excellent for the heart over time. Also, you'll start building up some leg strength. Now, the other things that are possible in a spin class, you can have a seated climb, really adding resistance onto the bikes, slowing the pedals down, and simulating going up that hill while in the saddle. Now, sometimes people think, well, if I can't stand comfortably, well, then spin isn't for me, or I'm not working as hard. Ooh, my goodness gracious. If you are in the saddle, no gravity, no body weight, the only thing that's making these pedals go round is the strength of your legs. You can get in an amazing workout in the saddle. So sometimes an instructor will ask you to lighten up the resistance, not too light. You always want something to push against so that you can do things like little bursts of speed, adding about 10 RPMs, and then slowing it down, waiting 10 to 30 seconds, then picking it back up for about 10 to 15 seconds, slowing it back down. And these are just little bursts of speed, adding 10 to 20 RPMs. Or you can do full-on sprints. Thing about sprints, keeping in mind that we never go over 110 RPMs. Always control. So still adding a little bit on, dropping it down to maybe about 80. And then a sprint is going flat out for about 20 seconds. Here we go. Going, going, going. Feeling the effort. Feeling the heart rate increase. Holding, pretending we've reached 20 seconds. Slowing it down. Brief recovery phase. And then ready to go all over again. Expect some recovery times during a spin class. These are important. You don't want to be charging during an entire class. You will get better performance by letting that heart rate come back down and then charging again. There are so many different ways to enjoy a spin class. At the end of a class, you'll go into a cool down period, going back to a flat road. Again, 80 to 90, checking in on your form. It's very easy to become fatigued during a class. That's the whole point. But checking in the whole time on your shoulders, on your elbows, on your feet. That's what spin instructors are for. And then at the end of class, when you've cooled down, you'll start doing some stretches. Now, I strongly encourage you to do even more stretching after a spin class. At the end of a spin class, we want to avoid cramps, and we just want to maintain our flexibility. If you have time, and again, I strongly encourage you to do that, add in some extra stretching at the end of class. So, at the end of a class, and again, remember to stay constantly hydrated. It is so important. Coming up and off a bike and getting ready for some stretches. Now, I'm just going to show you on one side, but you'll be doing it on both. First stretch. Quadricep. Standing up nice and straight, keeping your knees together, holding onto the foot or the ankle with one hand, maintaining balance with a hand on the bike. Balance training is very important, but after a spin class, that's not the time to work on it. Letting go of the quad, then we'll go for a hamstring stretch. Putting a foot up on the bike, getting ready to hinge at the hips, keeping the chest nice and open, just hinging down, feeling the hamstrings, getting a nice gradual stretch. At that point, you can plant a foot on the bike, go for your opposite hip flexor, bending forward, feeling this hip flexor take a little break. And then the last stretch for the legs. Crossing one foot over a knee, sitting it down, opening up your hip and feeling the stretch in the gluteal muscles. Standing it up. We don't want to forget about our upper body. One arm straight out in front, using the other hand to assist the shoulder across and down. Then moving into a tricep stretch. And again, you would be doing that on both sides. Lastly, putting the hands out in front, opening up your back. And each one of these stretches should be held for 20 to 30 seconds. And then putting the hands behind. This is my favorite. Opening the chest up. Feeling the pecs start to stretch. Really enjoy this one. If you can get away with it, this is where I'd put the extra time. We do so much with our arms straight out in front of us, at a desk, on a spin bike, driving. Everything is done with our arms out in front. Let's give them a break. And then lastly, just a few breathing exercises. Dipping down, breathing in big through the nose, and out through the mouth. That is your introduction to spin. Again, my name is Amy with the Ashland Family YMCA. Thank you so much.